My name is Cathi Nelson. I'm the CEO and founder of the Photo Managers. And I had a huge customer base of people who would make photo albums for their families and things. And then people started saying to me, can you make an album for me? Or how do I get my photos from my memory card to my computer? A friend said, well, what do you charge per hour? She said, I don't care how long it takes. I guarantee hundreds of other Marias would pay somebody to do this. And people started hiring me. And I started thinking, wow, this is a much bigger opportunity than I had anticipated.
This is one of the most unique businesses I've come across. I have a ton of photos that have built up in hard drives on old computers and phones, and a lot of other people do too, but I never actually thought of making money off this problem. Today, you're going to learn how tackling some simple, everyday problem can create $1 million business. Welcome to Member Sherpa's High Altitude Case Study Series. So, who are you and what's your background?
My name is Cathi Nelson. I'm the CEO and founder of the Photo Managers, which that's been a labor of love for 16 years. Prior to that, if I go way back, I was in marketing and advertising sales in my 20s and early 30s, which I think honed my sales tenacity skills. And then when I became a mom, like so many women, I wanted a more flexible schedule to be available to my family because the business, that world was very unfamily friendly. And I discovered scrapbooking of all things, which really was about telling stories with photos. I wasn't into the crafting side of it, which was a big part of it. It was a massive market, $1 billion business in the 90s and in the early 2000s. It was a direct sales model where I grew a very successful team throughout the Northeast and throughout the world. And in 2009, I called it my incredibly shrinking paycheck. As consumers, this is a big disruption in the photo industry. A lot of people don't think about this, but it disrupted, like Kodak went out of business. All your 1 hour photo labs that everybody relied on no longer exist. Your camera stores are no longer in business for the most part. And at the same time, so anybody that was printing film or photos stopped doing that because they were switching to digital. So I went from earning a living on selling a consumable product over and over again to a service-based business when people started asking me, could I actually do this for them?
Oh, that's interesting. Photo managers. So what exactly is the business and when did you start it?
Yeah, so in 2000 and around 2009, 2010, I noticed that. So I had spent a lot of time, and I had a huge customer base of people that I would sell, products to, who would make photo albums for their families and things. And then people started saying to me, can you make an album for me? Or how do I get my photos from my memory card to my computer? Because they were using, in those days, we still had memory cards. We weren't, the iPhone hadn't taken over the market at that point. We weren't using our mobile phones as our main point and shoot camera. We were using digital SLR cameras. And a friend said, well, what do you charge per hour? And I was stunned by the question. I said, well, Maria, I'm not going to charge you anything. And she said, no, you have to let me pay you. I paid a residential organizer to help me move and, organize all my stuff. And so I thought, all right. So I finally, agreed. I went to her home, and not only did she she was a PC user. Her husband was on a Mac. She felt really frustrated with the technology. I called it I was originally thinking of myself as like the geek out squad for women with technology. But she had also inherited boxes of photos. Her parents had both just passed away. She was a sibling with four siblings. Somehow she got the collection. Somebody, usually in the family gets that photo collection. She had promised that she would digitize that, get it to her siblings. She hadn't done it, felt guilty. Also, her dad was a really prolific gardener, and she wanted to make a memory book of her dad's garden. And she said, Cathi, can you do all that for me? And I said, well, Maria, it's going to take a while for me to go through. I have to curate all that photo collection, and how much, it's going to take some time. And she said, I don't care how long it takes. I guarantee hundreds of other Marias would pay somebody to do this. So I called myself a photo organizer because I needed to organize the photos in some kind of chronological order to create a photo book, because it had to have a beginning, middle, and end, right? Had to have a narrative when you're dealing with digital, photo books, because there has to be an end point, right? And so I just called myself a photo organizer. I went home and I started a business. I started going to my local chamber of commerce, and people started hiring me. And then they started bringing me much more than just photos. I got, letters from World War II, or old home movies on outdated media formats, or, so many different questions. And I started thinking, wow, this is a much bigger opportunity than I had anticipated. So I started doing very well. And other people then started finding me and saying, you teach me how to do this? So I quickly figured out that it didn't make sense to give up all my intellectual property because I spent a lot of time like creating a business around it. And so I decided to create an association model, which was really as a membership community, but in those days there was no such thing as membership communities. And so I'm not a nonprofit, I never have been, but I modeled my business after what like a typical trade association with certification and I've never looked back. I mean, and so we changed the name from photo organizing to photo management in 2020 because it's a much more accurate description. Digital, we didn't realize like we were working a lot with analog photos in those days, but digital photos, I mean, now everybody, we take like, a trillion photos a year. It's like some astronomical number. And most consumers will tell you they're overwhelmed with, I have 70,000, 80, 100,000, digital images on my phone. I don't know where they are. They're in Dropbox, they're in Google Photos, Amazon Photos, they uploaded them to Shutterfly, a million different places. And we have a huge downsizing market of baby boomers who are leaving, moving out of homes with a lifetime collection of analog photos. So there's a huge market of people who care deeply about their photos and want an organized collection to tell their family legacy, to pass on a family legacy.
I know this is something that I'm definitely starting to run into. I don't know how many phones I have, probably
Right.
four kicking around in cupboards, and I have old laptops and just a lot of photos
Right.
stuffed on
They're
them.
all just, and in there, we always tell people, look, it's not, you don't want the 100,000 nobody wants the 100,000 photos that we have, or the food photos, or like, should I buy these shoes? You send a picture, screenshot to your sister or whatever, like, hey, do you like these red shoes or blue shoes? Or, in the midst now of our photo collection are all that. But I always say in the midst of that, though, are baby's first steps, or, your dad before he passes away, or, in the middle of those long photo collections are the photos that we really care about. And that's the piece that's really necessary. And I'm sure you're going to ask me, and we can talk about it now, or we can talk about it in the future. But is AI going to take over our business model? And I have an answer for that too. But
Well, AI has been a big topic in the online business space, definitely. But just because it's such a unique thing to come across, you often come across blogs or food blogs, but photo managers is just definitely something new to me. When you talk about organizing photos and photo books, are you talking about a physical book, like putting together or printing out a physical book that, you might get from Amazon for a famous photographer or something?
yeah, no. So what is the process? So all of our members are independent business owners, so they have their own business model and they work with different clients. But the average client is not, we do an intake. So like if I could wave a magic wand over your entire what is it, what's the outcome? Most people, a photo book is maybe one piece of it. Not everybody wants that. Some people just want their photos backed up on an external hard drive so they can pass them on to each of their kids. Here's your Johnny, here you go. Here's an external hard drive. Well, we would tell them put them in an external hard drive and back them up to the cloud. So best practices would be you should have redundancy in your media because there's always a risk of loss. Some clients want an organized. What most people don't realize that is what they can get is their entire photo collection in one place. And so, for instance, like I happen to use my Apple library, but I can pull up right now a picture of myself when I was 2, or from 19, or my kids, when the analog photos were out, because it's all been curated and now it's merged into my digital library. So I have a organized like life story collection in one location. So different people want different things. Some people want a video montage with like to music and things. Some people want a memory book, like a literal, like their legacy story told. So there's multiple. What's really interesting about the business, there's not one pathway to success in this business. It keeps expanding. And we just recently added like a legacy certification program because legacy storytelling is becoming a big topic in the marketplace. And people really they recognize, especially again, baby boomers, which is a huge market, want to pass on their legacy. And so they're looking for assistance. And how do I do that? So photo managers help with that as well.
Absolutely. It sounds like your business kind of has two, I don't know, two layers or two steps. So your actual clients are the smaller businesses that are part of your, I guess we could call it an association.
like I tell my members, my client are the members who pay me an annual fee for as like almost like a traditional, like a trade association, that we're much more nimble than that. We're way more innovative, and because it's my business, so I care deeply about the business. And I have two philosophies: a rising tide lifts all boats, and we're collaborative, not competitive. So there's way more business than there are photo managers. So the photo managers themselves, the independent business owners, collaborating together have really helped shape what this industry looks like. Their client is who used to be my client, but I just got too busy. So I don't work with individual clients on their photo collections anymore. But my members, the small business owners who are members of my association, work with hundreds and hundreds of clients.
How did you get the idea to focus on kind of a membership model with actual small businesses or association model rather than
Yeah.
just looking for clients yourself?
Well, because as people kept asking me for support, like can I teach them how to do that? First, I was giving people my intellectual property, and then I got a little smarter, and I used to have people actually used to mail me checks, and I made them I gave them I had created a brochure on Vistaprint and like a business card, and I kind of changed their logo and stuff, and I'd get these checks in the mail, and then over time I started realizing that they could be so much more than that, and so I realized certification was going to be critical for credibility, that we needed to have best practices, that I started recognizing I was creating an industry that didn't exist. So really, there was no such thing as professional photo organizers. Now there is. It's a thing. We have members worldwide. So just like there was no one personal trainers or professional coaches, really, I realized I was shaping an industry whose need was only going to increase. So the membership
Absolutely.
model, I use that term now because that's the term that is known in the lexicon. That's kind of become the so many businesses have done that, but at the time I didn't know that's what I was doing. I just had an instinct, and I knew enough from my own life experience that community small it's really lonely to be a business owner. I was lonely, and that in that growth happens in community. So I early on created a conference model where we have annual conferences, and I started offering free webinars, and I realized that we needed training. So I kept adding more and more value to the membership option. And it was passive. And that's not really passive income. I mean, I thought it was passive income. I now know there's no such thing as, in my opinion, of true passive income. I work really hard every day
Absolutely.
to maintain those, to maintain those relationships. But it felt like I realized when I did the math that I could do, it was easier to make more money by, having a membership model than me working with clients individually over and over again.
Yeah, fair enough. You could just, the ultimate result is that you can help far more people than you could
Right.
alone. So, yeah, absolutely agree with that. Now, what major challenges did you face when you first started it or first started scaling it? I mean, one of the advantages that you have actually is because this is kind of a new industry. People's digital hard drives or their digital life is getting more and more cluttered. So obviously, this is a fast-growing industry and a new industry. So, by starting the business, you could just kind of ride that wave for growth. But did you face any major challenges?
Yeah.
How?
We're riding a wave now, but I always tell people I'm a 16-year overnight success. I mean, we had a tremendous amount of naysayers. The person who that's ridiculous. Like, who would hire you, or how could you organize somebody else's photos? Now everybody says, "Oh my God, I need you," but they weren't saying that in the initial stage of things. I just kind of knew that was going to change. I just had a sense of it, and I had enough experience with people coming to me. So I think building confidence in the early. I would say our earliest members were the true pioneers. They were out there, telling people that this was a legitimate business, and then helping business owners understand their value, and not because it was a passion project for a lot of people. Most of our members, they come from amazing backgrounds, but they have something in common. I've heard it 1,000 times. Because when I certify people, I interview them. I interviewed she was a nuclear physicist and helped work on the space shuttle, which was crazy. But she told me this was a second act career when she loved photos, but she wasn't a photographer. She always made the albums and the calendars for her family. And when she discovered us, she started jumping up and down on her bed, and her kids came running in like, what's wrong with you? And she said, I found my dream job. I mean, it's like so crazy to listen to her tell me that. So, finding people like that over time has been, and then nurturing them along the way and building credibility. Another thing I did really early on, I think that really helped. A couple things that I have worked diligently with connecting with professional, like say Epson scanners or, digital photo frame companies, photo book companies. I used to go walk the floors of all the photo expos and things and look for like ancillary businesses because I knew that we were creating a new market segment for those companies. And so I worked really hard to build credibility as well with them, which was just a lot of relationship building and knocking on doors and showing up at conferences. I've spent a lot of time, speaking every chance I can get at the like National Association of Professional Organizers, the National Association, any ancillary business. I apply to speak, and then I also I've also spent a lot of money buying exhibitor tables and then just showing up.
So is this where you got most of your first association members, or?
In the early years, that's how I did it. Now, of course, with social media and word of mouth, and but I still have to. We still do that kind of work because a lot of people still are like you. They haven't heard about it yet. It's changing, but we're like, there's no competition. Like no photo manager needs to worry about like, oh no, if I open my, there's like Mary's down the street and she's going to take business from me because a project takes anywhere from 3 to 4 weeks and you can only handle so many projects at a time.
Mm-hmm.
So, there's a lot of people in the world. And so those numbers work well this good numbers for the small business owner.
So I guess when you're giving your presentations, this idea kind of, hit people like a ton of bricks, or some of them like a ton of bricks. Other people thought you were kind of crazy. Most people, I guess, would have just kind of ignored you because they didn't really think it was that great of an idea. But then you just focused in on the people that thought it was a great idea, and that's where your membership came from.
Yes, yeah, and I needed proof of concept. I knew that proof of concept was critical, right? So I knew from my own experience I had proof of concept, but I'm also, started realizing I just have that tenacity spirit, and I know that I just have, people tend to follow, believe me when I tell them things. But I knew that, so that was probably the biggest challenge was converting my knowledge and skills and passing it on to other members so that then they could pass it on, and then it just kind of it accelerated in its growth from there. So we have many members who've been members for 12 to 15 years, and we're really still we're just a baby industry. I mean, the it's just really beginning to accelerate. We have more and more members now with outside studios with multiple employees. That wasn't the model in the beginning. It was mostly a solo entrepreneurs. But as their businesses have really grown, they've had to learn like how do you hire a project manager and how do you hire like a scanning technician, a digital technician, and so we're seeing more and more of that for those that want to really build a highly profitable business. So it's really been just following, just taking. I have behind me. Everything is figure outable, which is Marie Forleo's line, but I've just walked that walk.
So how have you decided to focus on membership packages? Are there different tiers, or how did you decide, I guess, how to put those packages together?
Yeah, that's a good question too. It was just a random. It was really hard to know what to charge. I did look at other association models. So again, I was looking at like I like would Google like associations, and I found there were also like the Association of Dog Walkers, and I looked at their business model, and I made decisions from that. We actually just recently went to a 3-tiered marketing this in January. All right, so it's 2025, and I've studied membership communities a lot, but I never, because I started so long ago, I didn't do the open and closed cart concept, because really we're creating a profession. I'm not just creating, these are people that are going on and having, lifelong careers. So it didn't make sense to me to do like this build up, like, oh, my cart is only open for this amount of time. Because I want you to, when you're ready to step into doing this business, I want you to step into doing the business. But that closed cart concept didn't exist in the early days for me. And then this year, though, last year we realized that we were losing members. When I looked at our churn rate, a lot of people were joining to get their own photos organized, which wasn't our model. So we realized we should add a new level that's called photo manager and training, is what we called it, for a lower price. It's a 1 year membership model. Now, of course, we're renewing it because we said, oh, it's only 1 year. And then, of course, in January, in December, people wanted to know, can I do another year? And we're like, oh, how dumb are we? Of course, you can do another year. And then we added a third, much higher level tier this year. It evolved over what I saw the market was asking for.
What does the high tier kind of involve?
I should know this off the top of my head. I can't believe I'm not going to know that. Like 11, I don't know. Like, I think it's like 12 or $1,300 now, which is just the first year, and it'll drop down at $649 a year. Right now is our pro membership level, and our photo manager training is $349, and we give unbelievable value to that for that dollar amount. I always tell my members, look, you become my client the day you sign on, and it's what keeps me up at night is whether I'm going to lose you or not, because I'm not a good business owner if you should only leave my organization as if you no longer want to be doing this as a business. I don't want you to ever leave because you don't feel like you're getting your money's worth.
So if we take a step back to those early days when you're doing, a lot of speaking engagements, what was growth like over the first few years?
Well, there's a longer story here. I don't know how much time you want me to get into it, but I called it the year I fell down the rabbit hole. Two things happened within a month of each other. I did a presentation at a local library called Got Photos Need Help, and a woman came up to me afterwards and she said, oh my God, you were spot on. I want to introduce you to my executive team. I'm the chief marketing officer of Fuji Film, and their headquarters happen to be real by. And I drove home thinking, what in the world did I say that she was so intrigued with? Well, again, now if you think back on what was happening in the industry, people had stopped printing. So, Fuji is one piece of their businesses was prints and books and things. And so here I am showing up at a library, and she couldn't believe in her hometown, like 120 people showed up like on a rainy Thursday. So she's taking notes. She's like, and they're resonating with my story, which is basically get your photos organized and tell your story and print your photos. So she invited me to be a speaker and sent me to a number of conferences for the independent photo imagers, and also the consumer was called PPA, the Photographic Marketing Association. So I was able to do that. And another person, and this has happened many times over the years, a lot of people have been looking to create technology to solve this problem. And they realize pretty quickly that they need an assisted sale because and so a company also found me that didn't stay in business, but in those early years, they sponsored growing the photo managers. It's a fascinating story. It'll be in my book someday, but it's like I got my MBA in 1 year because I was completely green. I knew nothing. I mean, I was so happy that they liked me almost like I didn't understand the value. And now I totally understand what they wanted from me. But at the time, I was so excited that I was getting confirmation that my idea wasn't crazy.
And Fuji is a big company too.
Yeah.
I mean, well,
They
everybody knows
were a
that.
major player. Yeah.
Right. Everybody knows them for cameras. Obviously, the X100 is, kind of a cult classic or a favorite. It's really popular. But not a lot of people know that Fuji has a giant printing business.
Oh, I think that's much more profitable, but they're not making a living on their cameras at this point. Yeah.
Yeah, probably. So I guess when you touched base with them and you started doing a lot of those speaking engagements, growth must have just exploded for you.
Yeah, yeah. And then that also was credibility to the person who was considering starting a business, and they're, how am I credible? The other thing I knew early on was that we needed to provide, so I negotiated a lot with all these companies to provide a discount on their products and services. So that was another recognition I had, that I realized, because I have a sales background, I think I understand that we were bringing a new sales channel to the market, and then they should, in exchange for that, give us a discount. And so that also built credibility then to the person who was joining us. It gave them a sense of confidence that that we were legitimate.
Before your Fuji journey or your partnership or association with Fuji, how did you go about finding speaking engagements? Did you just look for, I guess, conventions or
Yeah, I would Google like,
meetups?
speak. Well, I kind of started making a list of all the, so I think this is important for anybody who's doing it. There's ancillary businesses always in some way. So in my world, I realize like frame shops. People bring in, why don't I connect with the framing business? And I learned there's an association of framing business. Uh, though residential organizers, most of them, they go into clients home, they don't want to talk about, they don't want to touch their photos. So I did talks like you're leaving money on the table, or things like that. There are moving companies. I realized they weren't talking to the client. Financial advisors aren't talking to their clients about their photos. So I would kind of, that was my approach. I would look, then I had a long list, and then I would search for conferences, and then I would look for speaker proposals, which, like, we put out a speaker proposal, and then I would apply to speak.
Interesting. So you're not just talking about to, I guess, photo or photography related businesses. It's really you're looking at a wide spectrum of businesses that could possibly have some connection to photography in some way.
In some way. Well, yeah, I was thinking the client coming in. Well, what I thought from the beginning was we needed, like I said, proof of concept. I needed to help teach those new photo managers how to find, because again, I have a marketing background, how to find clients so that they're successful. Because I knew if they became successful, it would just snowball from there. So a lot of that was me. My message has always been two things: become a photo manager or hire a photo manager. Because I feel part of my responsibility to that member community is to drive as much business their way as I can.
Have conferences kind of topped out for you? Are you focusing more on traditional online business marketing strategies now, like
That's a
writing
good question.
articles, social media, that sort of thing?
Nah, our conference is still, we're getting, I'm working hard to prepare for it. The hard thing is conferences are getting really expensive on the hotel front. I just found out today they're going to add another $4,500 to for the electricity. Oh, when the AV department, the $31,000 AV bill for, this is a small conference. I mean, we're not like 175 people. And that's how we're talking those kind of dollars. That I figure the gift and the gift bag, that's 28. If I divided that by 140 people, that's 28. I think it was $28 a person. I'm like, there goes their, like, the member doesn't understand the costs, but magic happens at a conference. And so that's the dilemma we have. I think people wanted to be back in person. So I don't see us giving it up yet, because I just think there's a hunger for in-person um, connection. And we have members now, they call themselves like the photo manager. We have, they come from Denmark, London. We're all going to be jet skiing together in San Diego because we've like do these adventure things beforehand. So people can't, they see each other once a year. They've made friends. They've met each other online a million times, and they can't wait to meet each other. And we moved the conference from the Midwest. So we'll be in San Diego next year. I'll be announcing we're going to be on the East Coast. We just were in Columbus, Ohio. So we try and set it up. And then we supported our European group, had their second meetup. And then the second time around, I got involved in Australia's doing their first. And I'm talking to Canada about doing, because it's so expensive now for Canadians, about helping them do an event. So I guess I'm still in the event business. I could be an event. I knew nothing about events. And after 16 years, I realized I could be a great event planner. Like my son's wedding was like a piece of cake. I'm like, a wedding? It's only like 5 hours. When you do a conference, it's like you're like an event planner for 5 straight days. Because we do like, you have like, it's like we have 20 breakouts and we have all these speakers. And so I'm on for 5 straight days.
So where does article writing and social media fit into your marketing strategy then?
We do, we have found YouTube to become really, but we take all our interviews and webinars that we do on YouTube and we turn them into blogs. And so that really has helped. Um, I say right now we're really focused on YouTube. We're doing YouTube live events, and then that's another way for me to feature our members. So we just did like a live, like printed photo organizing with one of our members. We've never done a live one like that where we showed people how to do it. We had a pretty good viewing, and then she sent me a screenshot of her lead magnet, which we encourage her to do. That's our give back to them for their subject matter expertise. And she showed me her like inbox, so she was pretty excited. So we're always looking to build. Really, list building is, I guess, the biggest part of what we do.
I mean, there's so many photography YouTube channels out there. Have you considered reaching out to them and talking to them? Because, they talk to a lot of people that are photographers and have probably thousands of photos. So it um seems like a pretty lucrative
Yeah, I should.
area to focus on.
I hadn't thought about looking into that. We do B&H Photo, which is a big photo, one of the largest. We do a series for them every 3 months. We do a 4-week series. Again, I highlight my members because I'm not the photo manager, so it's a way for me to give our members high visibility. And then I call it riding on other companies' coattails. So some of these partners I'm talking about have huge social media marketing teams and lists. So what we bring them is the value. Like we just did a webinar this week. They had 2,000 people sign up and 550 people show up live. For that company, that's an impress. They were impressed with that number. We were the subject matter experts. We have a lead magnet built into that. We added those. Those are warm, good leads for me because if they cared about that topic, so that's kind of I call it grassroots marketing, really.
So how much is the business making now? What's the revenue mix?
We're not at a million yet, so we're a couple 100,000 below a million at this point. And we have 4 revenue models though, so I don't know if you want me to jump into that for this
Go for it.
audience, but I realized that the subscription model, which is really the model of membership fees, was one, but if I raised that too high, I was going to lose people. So we have an annual. We do what we call. We have 2 annual events. We have an annual in-person conference, which I'm getting ready to do our 13th in San Diego. And then we do a virtual conference, which we learned we could do really well after COVID in the fall. And then, so that's another revenue stream because we get great speakers and we make it an amazing experience. We just throw an awesome event either way. It's just top notch, not boring. And then also connecting with these is what I call our partner community, which are these. I tell companies when I meet with them, we're not going to move your needle on your sales, but what we're going to be is influencers. We're major influencers. And I don't do an affiliate marketing approach because I'm never going to make enough money doing that. But I charge them and I said, but if you pay me, I have tiers of money, then we open the gate to the community and we help you build significant relationships. That has worked really well. I mean, it's a true partnership with these. So that's another revenue stream for me that's made a big difference.
So if you're looking at, or you're talking to somebody that is interested in starting their own association, maybe not necessarily for photography or photo organizing, but just an agency or association in general, what would you recommend?
I would definitely, depending on what it is, I think the certification, if you can create, and we created our own certification, we just updated it, but if you can create a certification model that matters we have a global, so you're only listed on our website if you're certified because we vetted you. So it's raised the level of professionalism. It's just, and people want to be certified. If they're serious business owners, they want that seal that we have of approval, kind of that, and we make a big deal about it. I have an interview with me. I make it a big announcement. I tell their background. I've done that hundreds of times. I still have those one-on-one calls with people. So I really recommend finding a value that's something, of that kind of value to the member community. If it's a professional business, if it's not, what else would I say? Anything you can do to create community. So like we just recently changed our mentor model from one-on-one because we had such a waiting list and our members volunteer to a group mentoring. So we match 4 new members with 1 experienced photo manager. They only meet with them 1 hour, 6 times over. So 6 hours total. So it's 1 hour over, 8 weeks. So for the photo manager, they're happy to do that. It's 1 hour, but we put these 4 people together. And what happens is the goal is those 4 people become their own pot of support and they go on and eventually they become, and so that model is really starting to work. So I do lots of different ways of creating community. That's the newest one. But I think creating community, because you want the community, they're so connected to each other, and many of them are from all over the world. Now they come to our conference, but it's lonely being in business by yourself. And so people want to connect with other people who think like they do. And every way that you can make sure that happens is really a value.
Would you say that your pod is more appealing to members than just a community forum?
Yes, because we provide so another thing that we provide is we kind of say it's like a turnkey. So you don't have to reinvent the wheel. So we provide a lot of, you just don't have to reinvent the wheel. You're going to join we have four, what we call our four, we've grown over time, but we have four courses that are part of our core curriculum. It's going to set them up to be successful. We have a whole document library, so you don't have to create a client needs analysis. Are you going to improve on mine? Absolutely. It's the same one I used when I started. And but we still give you those building blocks so it's really to ensure that we've given those building blocks to success. Because we're helping people start a profession. So if they're not making money and they're not successful, they're not giving me much more than probably 6 to 8 months. So, I'm doing everything I can to give them the skills and the foundation they need to go on and be successful.
So these pods that you're talking about, I guess the members would go through certain training material together.
I mean, actually we haven't even formalized it. We let the photo manager, we let the quad ask the questions and the photo manager lead that. We also set up regional meetings recently, so in the past couple of years. So now we have, again, members that volunteer. In exchange for volunteering, they get a reduced membership fee, significantly. And they run the regional Zoom meetings. And so as soon as a new member joins now, they're introduced to their regional leader, who will send them a personal welcome email and invited to this regional group. So we're too small. Our regions are big, like all of Europe, we have one European group. We have one Australian group, and then we have like the whole, like the West or the Southeast, but that's made a big difference too. So that was another way that we put people into smaller communities.
And then they can relate better to each other.
Yeah. And then they can help each other. And in our business, we say, do what you love and outsource the rest. You're never going to know all of the things you need to know to be a photo organizer. Like, if you're an Apple user, you're going to learn the Apple ecosystem. But if you're PC, you don't want to maybe learn the PC. So we always say, find another photo manager and outsource work to each other. So we really encourage that cross work, and that has made a big difference.
And that works for your business as well, doing what you do well, what you enjoy doing, and then outsource the rest of it so you could just focus on, crushing it in those key areas.
And then we encourage the photo manager, to form relationships. So, we have members that only want to work with analog large scanning collections, and they don't want to do the digital piece. So now we don't get involved in how they compensate, but we've made suggestions, but there's lots of those they've worked that out with each other. And it's made a huge difference. So you're working with a trustworthy person. The good thing for me is it's staying in my ecosystem. And so it's just a win-win. Everybody's happy because the ecosystem is working as it should.
Fair enough. So what's next for you?
That's a good question too. I definitely am starting to think about my legacy story. Like, who's going to take the business? It sounds a lot like I'm the personality of the business. I have pulled back from that because really this business somebody else needs to take it over and take it into the future. I think the photo managers will go on long after me at this point. And so I'm really wrestling with thinking that through and how do I do that well?
So I guess a sale or passing it on to the kids or something like that is
not my kids,
awesome.
but they're not interested. But either a sale, or is there somebody within the community who's going to be interested in stepping in, or is there somebody in our partner community that knows who we are, but protecting the integrity of what I've created. One other thing for people that are thinking about association, I also eventually created an advisory board. So it's for profit. I asked them to be they get free membership. I picked a cross section of people. There's 9 of them. That's really helped. And especially when I make decisions that, I don't want to say they're unpopular because I try not to, but first of all, I can get help from people they're in the community. They are the photo managers. They've been great. And then also, if I have to make decisions, it's really nice to say, I made this decision with the advisory board, because I think that so our members know that there's a bigger group watching out for them now. Like, the last thing I could say, I told my team recently, we've lost for many years you could say, oh, we made that mistake or we didn't do that right because we're new. I'm like, those days are long gone. We've got members who have been with us 10 or 12 years. They are watching what we're doing with a lot less grace than they would have when we first started. So that's just
Absolutely.
something that I've come to understand, that we have to, our level of excellence has to stay up there. We can't, get lazy.
And if you have an advisory board, that comes across as a lot more professional as well.
Yeah. Yeah, and I have their pictures on there, and it's I've become very good friends with them. I didn't, I wish I'd done it sooner. I didn't, I only, again, a lot of these things I'm talking about I've put in place in the last 4 or 5 years, and so I think I was spinning my wheels a lot. I probably could have grown a lot faster if I knew a lot more than I did now, but
I mean, you're the trailblazer, right? This is a new industry, new
yeah.
model for you. So awesome to talk to you. And thanks a lot for sharing your story.
Yeah, well, thanks for good questions.
If you're looking to get into business, one of the key things to remember is that it really comes down to solving problems for others. Cathi stumbled upon a common problem and realized that she could package up a solution to help solve it. But rather than just working with individuals to organize their own photos, she realized that she could help a lot more people and make a lot more money if she put together a membership business, serving others who want to build a business around this same problem. If you're new to membership businesses, make sure to watch my interview with Ernesto Ortiz, who runs a very successful search engine optimization agency that's focused around recurring income. And if you want to know how to start your own podcast to improve your business's reach, I recommend checking out my conversation with Omar Zenhom at $100 MBA.